priorities, and so I just kind of want to walk them with you, and you can tell me the extent of the cuts. So are you cutting funding for maternal and child health and Gavi or nutrition? And if so, by how much? And I don't think it's actually a sufficient answer to say we see unobligated balances and we'll either get back to you or not. So what about family planning? Are you cutting that? Do you think it's your prerogative to decide which of these to defund, or do you think it's the legislature's prerogative?
You all write appropriations bills. You have allocations that are set in those appropriations bills. We take an assessment as to what is there in terms of unobligated balances, and we make a decision as to what is necessary. But the notion, unless you've written into the law.
Under President Trump's second term, the White House wants to take back over $1.3 billion in global health and humanitarian aid money Congress already approved. But in this heated Senate hearing, Senator Schatz isn't buying it. He demands direct answers. Are we cutting family planning, pandemic prevention, aid to Ukraine and Sudan? The Trump administration says the money is unobligated, but the senator fires back. You want us to approve cuts without telling us what's being cut? It's a tense showdown over power, priorities, and who controls the federal budget. This isn't just about numbers, it's about lives, global leadership, and constitutional authority.
Shots.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Director. Good to meet you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to try to get some clarity on numbers. In the package, you propose to rescind $500 million from the USAID global health programs that Secretary Rubio is trying to move to the State Department. That account funds a wide range of bipartisan priorities, and so I just kind of want to walk them with you, and you can tell me the extent of the cuts. So are you cutting funding for maternal and child health and Gavi or nutrition? And if so, by how much?
Again, Senator, this account was structured to give you a reflection of the unobligated balances in those main accounts. We will have substantial global health funding at the end.
How about, so the answer is
family planning and it's PEPFAR.
Hold on, I don't want to
family planning and PEPFAR.
Yeah, I don't want to talk over each other, okay?
Sure.
TB, malaria, polio, is there a cut there? And if so, how much?
Again, those have been priorities that we have had, as you've seen in our budget. But again,
Director, it's fine if you want to say you're not going to tell me, but we don't have to launch into our talking points. I'm just trying to get a number, and it's pretty customary in front of the Appropriations Committee with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, who is proposing to rescind dollars, for me to say, are you going to cut this? And if so, by how much? And I don't think it's actually a sufficient answer to say we see unobligated balances and we'll either get back to you or not. So what about family planning? Are you cutting that?
yes.
How much?
$500 million.
Okay. Pandemic prevention?
Again, there are two accounts for global health. $500 million for family planning and $400 million for PEPFAR. The extent to which you want us to be specific is not a test and a standard in which you hold yourselves up to with regard to appropriations bills. You don't ask us to say, we don't ask the Congress to say we want a rack up of every grant and recipient in every specific line item and program. We work with the allocations that you give us. And there's obviously back and forth as it pertains to the interactions between the legislative and executive branch.
Yeah,
We've given you the extent to which the top line accounts are impacted, and the main story is the extent to which the unobligated balances are flush.
Could we please take turns? Thank you. You're proposing to rescind $1.3 billion in addition to $1.5 billion in emergency funds that you said you won't spend for humanitarian assistance. The big chunks of this are Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, and DRC, and those are roughly equal amounts that we're currently spending. Are you planning on distributing the reductions equally among those four baskets? Do you have an idea of which of these humanitarian crises are going to get less funding? Or do you consider that your prerogative to decide after we enact this rescissions package?
Again, we are looking at the flexibilities that you've given us within appropriation.
Do you think it's your prerogative to decide which of these to defund, or do you think it's the legislature's prerogative?
You all write appropriations bills. You have allocations that are set in those appropriations bills. We take an assessment as to what is there in terms of unobligated balances, and we make a decision as to what is necessary. But the notion, unless you've written into the law, in terms of your statutory expectations, there is great flexibility there, and much of, I think, quite frankly, the fake news this year has been the extent to which we are pursuing our flexibilities into the law to make sure that funding is aligned with our priorities.
Let me try it this way, Director. It's plainly true that you're exercising your authorities to the maximum extent of the law, and then we can have an argument about whether or not you're exceeding your statutory and constitutional authorities. But it's certainly within the prerogative of the legislative branch when considering a rescissions package to say, this thing isn't specific enough for me to vote yes. This is actually our call now. And if you're not going to give us any specificity and say, look, we've got the authority to ignore you, that's actually true. And then we've got the authority to reject this package. Thank you.
Senator